Oh. All right. All right. Good morning. I have challenged you guys to use one of these frames that I gave you in order to play around with I keep calling it Plasticraft because I think that's what it used to be called. I found my giant box of this stuff that I have had for years, and they call it claycrete. If you look up, I did find one video this morning on YouTube about claycrete, but it was comparing claycrete and a paper clay. But knowing the name of claycrete, maybe you can find some more information. Plasticraft was giving me nothing. I don't think they sell it anymore. So it's kind of, I don't know. You gotta rely on me and just playing around. So I want you to explore your recycling if you have it. If you have a recycling area in your house. So I was looking at my frame this morning, thinking about what I could do with it. And I decided I was going to put it on its side, or its corner, not its side. Somehow I make like a base for it. And I'd like it to kind of sit up somehow. And I'm just playing around, so I'm not, you know, I'm not getting too crazy. I'm okay if you guys don't create a huge meaning to this one. I really just want it to be a trial to see what this stuff does, okay? So I grabbed a tin can from my recycling. I grabbed some newspaper. You need a bucket of some sort to mix up this stuff in. So I grabbed that. That's a little better. So I grabbed this. Just try to find something that's plastic. You may be able to clean it out, but it's probably going to go in the trash after. So try to find something that you can eventually throw away or keep for a while you play with the bag of stuff that I gave you. Okay, so try to find something. You could always use like a soda bottle, like if you have a 2-liter or something, or a milk jug, cut off the top, maybe like tape it so you don't hurt yourself. But something like that size is good. You don't want to mix up too much at a time. I grabbed this little guy. I always like using these anyway, but I thought maybe I could use it as a base. Ooh, that fits nicely. I might do that. So you can kind of connect your materials. So I can think about how I want this to look. And I can also just use newspaper. If you have any wire is really fun. I could get some out, but it would take me 20 minutes. There's a lot of stuff down here. You could use wire. I could wrap wire around and make it a little bit thinner. You can take your wire and, if you have some, and wrap newspaper around it, and that would give a base. If you just take newspaper, I was originally thinking I was going to do something like this. Have something thin like this. It's almost like I put a mirror in there. I could have a little mirror. But the problem with that is there's very little stability under here. So you want to think of the armatures underneath. If I had something a little stiffer to go underneath this, that would be good. You can use your glue guns also. So if I had even cardboard would work. If I hot glued some cardboard on here in a shape, I could do it that way, right? But for right now, for me, I'm going to work with what I have right here and trying to make these a little bit more stable together. I don't know what it is, but that's okay. Masking tape works, but really anything that you have that can glue these suckers together so they're a little bit more stable. I might try some tape first if that's what I have on hand. And the thing I love about armatures is that it doesn't matter what it looks like or like surface. It's just trying to get that initial underneath form for you. But I've always loved just throwing some junk together and testing it out. So that is surprisingly strong right there. Do a couple more pieces. Just for fun. Diagonal. Do a big X. X's are always strong, right? All right. How am I going to get this? Stay here. So filling things in works. I'll try something like that. Now, this plastic craft stuff, or whatever you want to call it, it's really paper mache. It is going to be different than working with plaster strips. Plaster strips, you know, are thin. They're thin. So when you work with them, you're really trying to create an armature that is very much the shape that you want. So think about when we did the masks. But with this stuff, you can be pretty messy with what you're doing, and you can kind of add on and play a little bit more with it. So just, I would think of it like an additive piece. All right, I'm gonna leave it like that. I don't know what it is, but that's okay. If you have a surface like this, a little folding table, you could work right on this, but it's probably best to work on top of a piece of plastic, just like we did at school. That way it always comes off the plastic later and you don't make a huge mess, right? Please make sure that wherever you're doing this in your house, you're not going to make a giant mess, and that your parents are okay with you doing this. So I'm not going to show you the whole thing right now. I'm going to show you how to get started. So I have such a large container. So I'll mix this up. So I just almost filled it, like 3/4 of the way. Now this stuff is wicked dusty. If you have your mask, use it. If you don't, just try not to, try to separate yourself from the cloud of dust that you're going to create. That's funny. I just want you all to know I was just looking for that. I need a little cup. So I have a giant bucket of water next to me. And I'm just going to add the water. starts going down pretty good. I'm gonna do one more. Now this stuff is weird. It mixes up to the, you want it to be like the consistency of tuna fish, which is strange. You don't want it to, see the dust. Oh, there we go. I do mix it up with my hands. All this is paper and plaster. It's paper pulp and plaster. You might absolutely hate this feeling, but it is very cool. I'd probably put a little bit too much water in it. If it's sopping and you can kind of wring it out like this, put a little bit more stuff in it. It becomes hard when the water evaporates. So if you mix it up a little bit drier, see why I try to put the water in? It's very dusty. All right, so I try to put the water on top and try not to mix it up too wet. There we go. That's better. I mean, it doesn't really stick to your hands. I mean, yeah, I have a little bit, but it's not anything you can't get off. You do want to be careful and like really wipe your hands off as much as possible before you go in the sink, because you know it is paper and we don't generally want to put paper into our sink. All right. But the fun part about this is it is very much like clay in a way that I get to mold with it. So I can just kind of take it and put it onto my piece. Now it doesn't have strength to it until it dries. So you can move it around. It does not dry fast. Okay. I would suggest that the first time you put it on, just take it in layers and just add yourself a nice thin layer. Try to keep it relatively smooth until you decide what your surface is going to look like. And then once this is dry, you can go back to it again and decide what you want your sculpture to look like. I would say that because this stuff does have some weight to it, make sure you get that first layer right down to the ground. My piece had a little bit of a wobble to it, so I'm going to also try, the plastic is working against me. I'm going to try to flatten that out so it doesn't wobble. And I'm going to go all the way around the bottom, especially if I run out and have to pick up more or make up more. But however you leave it is however it's going to dry. And this stuff is not easy to sand, okay? So really think about this like an additive sculpture. If you think about this like you're gonna add and subtract, you might be a little disappointed in how it comes out. So you are gonna have some texture to it. This stuff is not very smooth. If I wanted to use this as a base, I might actually use plaster on top of it, which I'm guessing you guys do not have at home. If you do, go ahead, use what you got. If you don't, I am fully aware that you're going to have some texture to this. You could kind of try to hide it with painting if you want after. You can try to sand it down so you can see how it goes, but you're sanding paper. So it is paper pulp ultimately. Okay. So got a nice base here. And I'm just going to cover the rest and try to use what I have left. And then I'm going to let it dry, and I'll do another video later to show you what I do next. This is starting to look like a hand to me, or it could be. So I might go that far, or I might just keep it like this. So when it's all wet, like I said, my hands aren't really sticking to it, so it's kind of nice. I can shape it around. If there's any big bumps I don't want, I can smooth it out. So you can work with it for a little while. If you didn't like, if I didn't want the roundness of the bottom down here, I could shape the bottom a little bit. That's about all I got. So I'm gonna try to use a little bit over here. Oh, and a little bit over here. To cover that, my armature up. This way you guys have something to work with to see what it's going to do, what you can do with it. So because my armature was really thick, I can't make this any thinner. So that's something you always want to think about when you're making your armature. I am trying to keep this straight in there. So if it's tilted, I have to fix it now, because once this is stiff, it's not going to be able to do anything. If I go look at this and go, oh no, I'd rather it like sit back, then you got to move it now while it's wet, because once this is all dry, you're not going to be able to move it. So I think I will decide to do that. I haven't completely covered it. I kind of ran out, but I'm going to leave it for now so you can see, and I can show you that you can fill in holes. Oh, it's coming apart. I'm going to not touch it. But there's like a hole right here. There's a hole over on this backside, and that's okay because I can just fill it back in. If I have any trouble with this really all staying together as one piece, I would suggest getting out the glue gun and going from there. All right, so have fun with it. Look up some videos if you can find any. If you find any, please share them with me, because I had a hard time looking for them. But since I pulled out my box and found out it's actually called claycrete, I haven't looked very hard. The stuff you have, I don't believe is the same exact brand of this, but it's the same essential thing. It's this plaster and paper pulp mix. All right, have fun.